Simply Tammy.
It's a blessing that I'm here, I'm alive. No, I never ever have to cry, cause it's something I know will always work for me on my side. Not a thing I even have to fight, all things work together for my good. Life speaks if you listen, it might be sound. Watch the love come alive. Sharing the truth that inspires, sharing the truth that inspires, sharing the truth that inspires. All things work together for my good. Life speaks if you listen, it might be sound. Watch the joy come alive, watch the joy. Sharing the truth that inspires.
Inspired to love, inspired to grow, inspired to heal, inspired to live. Simply Tammy.
Good evening, good evening, good evening. It is Simply Tammy, and you have joined us for another episode of Women Who Win. And I am so glad that you have joined us tonight. As you are joining, or for those that are already watching, please do what it says going across the bottom of the screen. Please share the broadcast. Please go ahead and say hello to us in the comments. We like to acknowledge not only those who are watching by acknowledging you at the beginning, but throughout the broadcast, as you comment on this interview, we will share your comments on the screen. So please go ahead, jump in the comments, say hello. We'll acknowledge you once I bring my guest in, and actually share your comments throughout the broadcast. After you've shared it, if you haven't already liked or followed the Simply Tammy page on Facebook, please go ahead and do that. And then like or love this broadcast. Also, for those of you that may be watching with me on YouTube, thank you for watching with me on that platform. I hope that as you're watching, you've already clicked on the subscribe button. And for those of you that are on Facebook, I encourage you to please subscribe to our YouTube channel as well. Very last announcement before I get to what you're joining me for. For those of you that like to know who's going to be on my broadcast, I do have a mailing list that I share that information before I share it on social media. So you can go to simplytammy.com. There's an option for you to subscribe at the very bottom of the homepage, and then that will get you added to our mailing list. So as these broadcasts are being prepared to come out for the week, you will know first who my guests will be, and you'll get their photo and bio on that mailing list. So I am so excited to have another amazing woman with me here tonight. So I am not going to delay. I'm going to go ahead and get ready to read her bio so that we can welcome her to the broadcast. My guest tonight is none other than Pastor Stephanie Lashley. And her bio reads, Stephanie Lashley is a serial entrepreneur along with her phenomenal husband, Victor Lashley. She is an author, life coach, owner of Open Door Real Estate Agency, Southpaw Boxing and Martial Arts Gym, founder of Ringside Rescue, a nonprofit for at-risk youth, and pastor of Created for So Much More Ministries. Pastor Steph has served in ministry since 1989 in various positions and gifts. Presently, Pastor Stephanie has a ministry for grieving mothers known as MOAN, Mothers of Angels Nearby. She does business-to-business mentoring with her daughter, and she is embarking on opening a Bible college and counseling center. Pastor Stephanie holds the office of a prophet and has preached and ministered nationally. She is a co-author of an anthology for women and her newest release, Fame, Forgiving All Mine Enemies. Upcoming works include Will the Real Prophets of God Please Stand Up, and Sermons for a Season, and an anthology of grieving mothers, yet untitled. Stephanie Lashley has been called for such a time as this. Welcome, 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 Pastor Stephanie.
Thank you so much. Hi, Simply Tammy. I'm so excited to be here.
Hello, hello. It is such an honor to have you here with me tonight. So before we acknowledge those of you that are joining us in the comments, I always kind of like to give a little bit of information on how I know my guests if I have met them. I have not met Pastor Stephanie personally in person, but I did have the honor of working on her book project Fame. Her editor made the referral to my company, Effectual Concepts, for the interior formatting. So we have been able to correspond via email and telephone during the time of that project. And she came highly recommended to talk to on this platform. And knowing a portion of the story that she wrote about in that book, I know that we're going to be tremendously blessed by her testimony tonight. So thank you again for saying yes. So we have in the comments with us Tamika Sims saying hello. Hello, Tamika.
Hi,
She is my
Tamika.
connection to Pastor Stephanie. We have Javian Woods, also a previous guest of this platform, watching with us. Good evening, Javian. We have my sister in Florence, Panora Wallace, watching with us on YouTube. Hey, Panora. And then we have Miss Alfreda Talley also watching and jumping in the comments. So I'm sure some more people will be jumping in the comments as they come on. So we're going to go ahead and jump right in. There's so much I want to ask you, so much I want to know. So I want to start, you are by confession in your bio and on your speaker sheet, a serial entrepreneur. And just reading all of the things you do, I'm like, where, when, and how do you even get to do it all? So I think the first question I want to ask is, which business came first? Because you and your husband have several business, the church, the nonprofit. So which one out of the businesses that you're currently functioning in, which one of those came first?
So Southpaw Gym, it is a boxing and martial arts gym. That one came first.
Okay.
In this set of businesses that we have, I have owned other businesses in the past, but this
Okay.
in this set, it was the boxing and martial arts gym.
Okay. So was entrepreneurship what you've always done, or were you at one time an employee turned entrepreneur? How did you launch into entrepreneurship?
Well, I always knew that I had an entrepreneurial spirit, but I worked corporate for a very long time.
Okay.
I worked for attorneys for a very
Okay.
long time, corporate attorneys actually, and then a few other different kinds. But that gets tiring, and attorneys are a special breed. So it's a lot of work, a lot of overtime, that kind of thing. And from there, I went into the nonprofit sector, and I
Okay.
worked as an administrator for a religious organization.
Mm-hmm.
And then after that, I mean, like I said, I have an entrepreneurial spirit. I know that I'm called to be an entrepreneur, and God kept pulling on me and pulling on me. And I actually, during the time that I was with the nonprofit, I also owned a business. And then
Okay.
way back in 1986,
Okay.
I'm dating myself, I owned a hair salon, because at the time I had my license, but
Okay.
I gave that up because I knew that what my thing was not to do hair. My thing was to be an entrepreneur. So, but after the nonprofit, there was such a pull on me to birth the businesses that were in me, and the businesses that I knew that God had for me. So I left the nonprofit sector as full-time. I was a full-time admin, and I left there, and we embarked on this journey of entrepreneurship.
Wow. That is amazing. So, um, because so many people have, just the fear or their whatever it is that keeps them from even fully launching into entrepreneurship, but you decided to not only take the leap, but then you start building multiple businesses. So what did you find was key with stabilizing the first one before you knew to launch, or was the first one at a certain place before you were able to launch a second?
Absolutely. So we worked very diligently, my husband and I, with the boxing and martial. It's called Southpaw. So with Southpaw, we worked very diligently to build it to a place where we were comfortable enough to be able to say, now's the time. The Bible talks about multiple streams of income, and that we are to be the lenders and not the borrowers, and God has called us to this. Many of the people in the Bible, they were entrepreneurs. So we built it to a point where we were comfortable enough to be able to launch out. We have a great staff. We have one location that's fully up and running, and all the glory belongs to God. Very successful. And then we have a second location getting ready to open in October in another county in New Jersey. And then today we looked at a third location this morning. But we had to make sure that our staff, that we were comfortable with our staff, and that we trust them enough to say, okay, mom and dad are going away for a little bit to take care of some other stuff, but we'll be back. So our staff is amazing. And we had to grow that. We've been through some employees that weren't so amazing. And we've been through, a lot of ups and downs. It's not simple. It's not easy. That we put a lot of blood, sweat, and tears into the business. And finally, after, and we've had some real big fallbacks with the gym over the years. I mean, my husband and I met in 2006. So this has been a journey since then. But the last 6 years have been nothing but building and really, really coming into our own and being able to say, hey, now's the time. So I launched I've had my real estate license since 2012, but I didn't go full force with that in 2012 because I didn't feel like we were ready. We were ready for me to leave. So I just kept my license and kept doing what I was doing with our initial business. Like, that is our baby. That's truly our baby business. And that would, if anybody said to me, which is the one that comes first, it would be that one.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So we didn't actually launch the real estate agency till February 2020.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah. Yes.
Right before the pandemic.
Right before the pandemic. And then we are actually relaunching it now. Like getting back up and moving after the pandemic. And then I actually is not in my bio, but I just purchased in March of this year a hair salon. So that's our newest baby. And we just launched our franchise for Southpaw Gym in June.
Wow. Well, congratulations. Absolutely. On all of your growth, on the multiple locations, the franchise. I love to see, growth in the midst of where, many things are being downsized and cut away for so many people. So to have a testimony of growth is amazing. So I'm going to pivot and I want to talk about your book, Fame. So I want you to talk to us about the journey to getting to the process of saying, I need to write this story, and then talk about the process of writing the story.
Okay. So Fame was birthed out of my son's death. My son was 23 years old, and the book was birthed out of his death. It is called Fame because he was an audio engineer. He was a musician. He was a songwriter, and his moniker was Fame. And when he was looking for a moniker, he had asked me what I thought of that moniker. And I said to him, well, what does it mean? Because are you just looking to be famous and you want to call yourself Fame? Or does it have a meaning behind it? What is behind that you chose? And he said to me, it stands for forgiving all my enemies. So after he passed away, I knew that this book had to be birthed.
Wow.
So it was not, and writing the book was very difficult. And I will have to say, I am so grateful for Tamika, who was my author coach, Tamika Sims, amazing woman. She was my
Yes.
author's coach. If I would not have written this book without her,
Absolutely. I
because there
understand.
were so many
She coached me
times.
on my first book as well. So I echo those sentiments.
Yes,
It wouldn't have happened without her.
would not have. And it took me a long time to write the book, over a year. It took me over a year, and there were so many times where I said I can't do it, and I called her and I cried and I said I can't do this. Like literally the first chapter took me. I think it was months after I wrote the first chapter that I would even go back to it, because it was so heart-wrenching for me
Mm-hmm.
to do this. It was just such a struggle, but then the process, it really didn't become easier, because the book is not about my son. It is truly about forgiveness, but because it was him who really taught us forgiveness. I mean, he was just such a great kid. He didn't really hold a grudge. He would always turn around and say, Ma, just you got to work with him. Just give him a chance, like just wait and see. And he was such a good kid. And so I had to, as I was writing, it pulled on my heartstrings tremendously. Tremendously. And I had such block, like I didn't even know what to say. And then when I picked it back up after the couple months of first writing that chapter, Tamika, as my coach, she was just phenomenal. And she was like, here, try this, here, try that. And let me, do this for these couple days. So the journey was hard, but when it was finally out and on paper, there was such a heavy weight that was lifted from me. It was just, I mean, and today I didn't realize it when we booked this appointment, but tomorrow is the anniversary of my son's passing.
Oh, wow.
And so I was like, how am I going to get through this tonight? But, I'm grateful that I got to write the book about forgiveness, and I can move forward, because the book was first. You always hear preachers say the message is first for them and then for everybody else. Well, this book was first for me, and now it's for everybody else.
So how many years have passed since your son's passing? Because the book, was that 2019 when it was released?
The book was released 2020.
2020. Okay.
It was, yes. It was released 2020 on his birthday.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
On his birthday. So he passed in 2016. And he was 23 years old at the time.
Oh, wow. So that was, 4 years seems like a long time, but for grief, it's not.
It's not.
So yeah, that I can imagine. So what you said you knew or felt that a heavy weight had been lifted.
Yes.
Once so what has the response been, and how have things transitioned for you emotionally since the release of the book?
So I find a little more peace since the release of the book.
Okay.
A little more peace. And I often find that the things that were written in the book, I can lean on and go back to, because even though you forgive somebody, it will always still scratch at your back door like a cat, right? It'll always still scratch at the door, because something will trigger something. And, so now that the book is written, I too can lean on all the words that came out of that book and everything that was put into it, and say, you know what? I am delivered.
Yes.
I am delivered from unforgiveness. Now, as far as the response from others, I've had people say, oh my God, this book is amazing. Oh my God, I can't get through the first chapter. I'm bawling. And then I have people that have said to me, I want to read it, but I don't want to read it. And I'm like, well, why don't you want to read it? And they said, because I don't know if I want to forgive.
Yeah.
And that to me is like super, that hits me very hard, like super deep, for somebody to say, I don't know if I want to read this book because I don't want to forgive.
Yeah. Because then I'm going to be accountable for what I know after I read it.
And I've
Yeah.
had people say to me, you know, since I've read the book, I have been able to now move forward in forgiveness.
Mm-hmm.
And thank you for that. Thank you for being so transparent in it.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So I know personally, and just actually, I think it's been within the last week, another woman that I know lost a son within the past year. So she actually did a video on social media saying that she wanted to, maybe start a support group for mothers. So, and I know that that's something that you do.
Correct.
You support other mothers. So how has that process been? And how did you arrive at knowing that what you went through was now going to make you strength for other people?
So my son died in September. And I'm going to be honest with you. Like, I stayed in my bed, would not come out the house, didn't want to do anything until literally Thanksgiving Day of that year. And I wasn't taking phone calls, nothing, but I had my phone and I was in the bed and I started scrolling through Facebook, and someone put a post up that my godson passed away.
Mm,
And at that very moment, I heard God say to me, get up, get dressed, and go to his mother's house. And I said, God, how am I supposed to console her? And I'm like in this bed for 3 months. What am I supposed to say to this woman? But you know what? There was a plan in it.
mm-hmm.
And I realized after I went and visited her that day that this is what God had for me. And then
Wow.
not shortly after that, God said to me, I want you to do this group. Here's the name. Do a Mothers of Angels Day luncheon this year coming. And again, I was like, for real, God, you want me to spend my first Mother's Day without my son at a Mother's Day luncheon for other women who have lost their children? Like, I couldn't conceive that this is what he was saying to me, because I was still, I was still very like, this was so fresh to me.
Mm-hmm.
And I couldn't wrap my head around, is this really the ministry you have for me?
Wow.
But it is, and it was. And women from all over the country call me. They call
Mm-hmm.
me. We have lunch. We get on Zoom. I've had women come to. So we do the Mothers of Angels Day luncheon every year. I've had women come from Indiana to the luncheon. Just come. I just fly in.
Wow.
I mean, it's not huge, but I know that God will grow it, because
Mm-hmm.
this is what He's calling me to do. I
Mm-hmm.
have girls that know me that work in doctor's office, like psychiatrist's office. And if they can't get appointments, or therapist's office, if they can't get appointments right away, they will say, hey, look, she's not a psychiatrist. She is a life coach, but she's not a psychiatrist or a therapist. But she lost her son and she has this group. Here's her number.
Wow.
So, I
Wow.
mean, this is not, I mean, no one asks for this. No one asks to be in this club, or this kind of ministry, but God gave it to me. And I just, it's amazing how it's not an easy ministry, but it's amazing how he propelled me into it.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And then I'm able to do it.
Yes. Yes.
So,
So, oftentimes we, those of us that, of course, you live a little bit and it's the grace of God that keeps you, but being in ministry yourself and then suffering such a great loss, what was your dialogue with God?
well, as you read in my bio, I hold the office of a prophet. So at first, I was just in total shock. But as I started to talk to God about this, I mean, I was angry. I was so angry. And I remember standing in my dining room and yelling at God and saying, why would you tell me everything about everybody else and not tell me that my son was going to die? And I remember being so crying and angry and just saying to him, why couldn't you just tell me? Why couldn't you prepare me? Why? But what I didn't realize was he was preparing me. So as I looked back at the things that transpired before he passed away, I had to go back and repent and say, God, you know what? You prepared me, but I just didn't see it. But
Wow.
how can I not see it as a prophet of God? And he said to me, if you would have known, you would have prayed and asked me not to do it, and I would have heard your prayer. He said, but it would have been worse if he did not die.
Oh,
If I
wow.
did not bring him home, his life would have been worse. So God didn't show me what the worst was, but he showed me that not only, and I share this sometimes, but when he was a baby, when he was probably about 2 or 3 years old, a prophet of God had come to visit and minister at our church, and she prophesied over his life. And she said to me, when he turns 23, there will be a tragedy, but God has him in the palm of his hands, and it will be all right. Now, I was young back then, and I was freshly in ministry, and freshly, literally, maybe saved a whole, I don't know, 3, 4 years, 5 years, maybe. So I was like, okay, I can live with that. Something's going to happen, but God said he'd have him in his hands. So we're going to be cool. Everything's going to be great. Never thinking
Wow.
that. And I did not really think of it until he started to get towards that age of 23. And he and I had a conversation about it. And he said, well, Ma, this is going to be my year. And I said, well, God said, this is what the prophecy was, but God said it was going to be okay, that everything was going to be good. And so we held on to that good part, but didn't really realize that God had prepared me from the time he was a baby.
Wow.
For that moment.
Wow.
And I'm glad that he did, even though I didn't realize it. But when we got the phone call, that it was heart-wrenching. It was a phone call that said, it was a young lady screaming, he's not breathing. He's not breathing. And so we made our way to his apartment. And on the way there, I was, of course, as a mother, I was praying, God, don't let him die. Just don't let him die, God. Don't let him die, God. And then all of a sudden, my prayer instantly changed, and the Spirit of God took over. And my prayer was, let your will be done.
Wow.
And literally my husband was like, oh no. Like he literally was like, when the prayer changed and I started to say, let your will be done, my husband was like, no, oh no. Like he was just, because he realized what was happening in the spirit.
Wow.
So, and there was a war. There was a war with my flesh as a mother and of who I am in God, knowing that this was God's will.
Wow.
And I know oftentimes people say, how can that be the will of God? But it was the will of God because he knew, we have to remember, God knows our ending from our beginning.
Yes.
So yes. God also knew if he would have lived past that age, God would have known what was really going to happen. And people will say, well, what could be worse than death? Well, for us, death is just the bridge to new life.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
But he could have lived a life that was horrific.
Wow.
And so God I have to look at it. I have to look at it in the spirit. Because if I don't, I'm not going to make it in the natural.
That's good. That's good. Wow. So, according to your bio, you've been in ministry since 1989.
Yes, ma'am.
So that's what, for over 40 years, right?
Oh yeah. Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. Didn't yes.
So I one of the things I like to talk about with women in ministry are the challenges. So how has your path to ministry been? And then how did that shift once you decided or God called you to pastor?
So I love ministry. I absolutely love ministry. And in the beginning, when I my journey in ministry was it didn't take long for God to start using me. And the truth is, I grew up a Catholic girl in Catholic, went to Catholic school, grammar school, and high school. And I met my first husband and converted to Pentecostal.
Wow.
Yes. Wow is right. So I converted to Pentecostal. And
Okay.
um and I was in an organization that really didn't recognize women in certain roles.
Mm-hmm.
In certain of the roles, like they didn't recognize us as ministers. We could be evangelists, or we could be teachers, or we could be missionaries, but you can't be a minister, you can't be an elder, you can't be a pastor, you can't be a bishop, you can't be an apostle, and
Mm.
so it was rough coming through that, knowing the calls, because I believe that I know that I move in the fivefold ministry. So it was tough. It was
Mm-hmm.
very tough. I mean, I remember times I had a female pastor. I had a female pastor, and I can remember going to churches where she was asked to minister and they wouldn't let her stand on the pulpit. She had to stand on the floor to minister. And as her congregation, loving her like we did, it infuriated us.
Mm.
Like,
Wow.
how dare they disrespect her? And she was so anointed,
Mm.
and she moved in the anointing. But it taught us humility.
Wow. That's
It
good.
taught us humility. It taught us that it's okay if they don't recognize us,
Mm.
because God recognizes our gifts and callings. And
Mm-hmm.
and it always took us back to, and your gift will make room for you.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
So, and then being in the Pentecostal church, there was a lot of shift too, because when I came to the Pentecostal church, it was very Pentecostal, and it was I don't know how to say that, but it was you weren't allowed to wear pants, no ankle bracelets, ankle bracelets. Oh, that was taboo. You couldn't have red nail polish, you couldn't color your hair. And when I
Mhm.
came to the Pentecostal faith, my hair was literally eggplant color, and I had long nails, and I had tons of jewelry. And the old mothers were like, "You got to take all that off. We don't do that here." And I was like, "What?" So it was it was a culture shock to me. But so as I
Right.
grew, though, I do not despise that upbringing in the Pentecostal church. It made me who I am today.
Mhm.
It taught me how to be a follower, so I could be a good leader.
Oh, that's good. That's
It taught me how to truly follow God.
mm.
And even in that, even in the shift, as people started to realize in the organization that it's not about the pants,
Mm.
it's not about the jewelry, it's not about the hair color. Listen, certain people can tell you or teach you something that they haven't been taught. So if they've been taught tradition, and that's all they've been taught, and they don't realize that tradition and the word sometimes don't go together.
Mhm.
They can only teach you what they know,
Mhm.
because you don't know what you don't know.
Right. Very true.
Right?
Very true.
So they were only teaching us what they were taught, until God gave them the revelation
Mhm.
that that's not what this is about.
Mm.
So it was definitely a journey of a lot of change.
Yes.
And then
Yes.
when God called me, I mean, I've been moving as a prophet of God for many years, and I knew
Mhm.
I was called as a pastor, but I tried to push it off on my husband. Not I have my ex-husband. He passed away. And we were divorced, and then he passed away. But even at that point, even with the divorce, was crazy, because some Pentecostal preachers believe that if you get divorced, that you lose. I had someone actually say to me, you will lose your anointing. And I'm like, no, where's that in the word? Help me out here, because I
I
don't
thought you were
understand.
going to say that they were going to say you couldn't get married again.
Right. Well, yes, they said that too. However, so I always try to push the pastorate off on my ex-husband.
Mm-hmm.
And God kept saying, no, I'm calling you.
Wow.
I'm calling you.
Mm-hmm.
So finally I accepted the call as pastor. And, that was a huge transition. And my ministry is out of the box, but we're in the word of God. If it's not in the word of God, we don't do it. So now, even with that, the struggle is because I fellowshipped with so many Pentecostal churches that still have a lot of tradition in them. They think I've lost my mind, because I don't, I know we shared this when we first talked in the interview, but like our church, we don't do church anniversary. We don't, I will not allow them to do pastor's anniversary. I tell them no, because that's not what a pastor is called to serve, not to be served. I'm called to serve the people. So I told them we're not doing no church anniversaries. We're not doing no pastor anniversaries. We're not frying no fish. We're not doing no pack a pew. We're not doing it. If it's not in the word of God, we are not doing it.
So just from a church perspective, because I heard you mention, earlier when you were under a female pastor, with the how you guys felt with the way she was treated, because of the way you guys, revered her, honored her, and I may be using other words, but do you find that there's any issues with honor with leadership when those things are not observed, or do you think that is better, honor is magnified when those things are not observed, or it's not an issue?
Oh yeah, it's an issue.
Okay.
Absolutely. In the churches, especially the churches that have really held on to tradition, and a lot of times people take scriptures in the Bible, and they just take that one piece of scripture that fits their agenda.
Understood.
And
Yes.
they don't read before, and they don't read after. So they're not getting a whole picture of what is being said. And they don't, the biggest thing is when you talk about women pastors and women bishops or women apostles, when you talk about women in ministry in those higher titles, a lot of people say that, well, in the Bible, it says women should be quiet. And I said, that was for that. And they have to understand that was for that time and that specific church and their situation that they had at that time. But people will take a little snippet of the scripture and use it for what they need to use it for. And that's with everybody.
Yes. Yes. Understood.
And I always try to say, you got to take the word before and the word after. You can't just eat a morsel of the word and hang on to that.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So, as far as endeavors, you mentioned that there's another book coming, there's more businesses coming. What's next for Pastor Stephanie?
Definitely another book. There's definitely another book. We are in the midst of planning. I want to do a major healing retreat. That's something that I feel is so needed. You know, I see and hear God saying that there will be more businesses. There will be, I know I have more books in me, more than one book. I have more than one book in me. But there will be another book. I believe that the next book is actually a book regarding about fear, facing, like, I don't have a title for it, but facing fears.
Mm-hmm.
The sermons for a season is actually written. I just need to have it edited and published. So that one book is finished. And I'm going to be honest with you, I have several books that are written and finished. They're just not typed and edited and published.
Oh,
So
wow.
I want to move in God's time, and I want to move as God says move.
Mm-hmm.
So I tend to, I have a hard time with saying this is what's next, because I might think that's next, and God is saying, no, wait, that's next.
Understood. Absolutely.
So, and I generally, am, anybody that knows me well knows I'm not going to move until God says move.
Mm-hmm.
And and Pastor Steph might say, okay, we're going to do this. And God is going to say, nope, we are going to do this. And that's what we're going to do. My daughter, who is actually on tonight, I saw her post something. She's always like, oh, Ma, I just wish you knew ahead of time. I'm like, I'm sorry. I can't tell you until God tells me.
Yeah. So they have to be ready to pivot quickly with you.
Yes. We are looking into starting, believe it or not, a collection agency. We're looking into starting a collection agency. We are looking into, my daughter and I are looking into starting a school, like she's very called. She's very called, very anointed. She's an amazing businesswoman, but her and I want to collab on a school, but we want it to be accredited. So we're taking our time with that.
Okay.
And it would be accredited for ministry as well as for business and other aspects. We've talked about, you know, even doing like a alternate, as opposed to a public school or a private school, like
Mm-hmm.
a alternate school,
Okay.
like a private public school almost.
Okay. Okay.
But there's a
Wow.
lot in the vision. The vision is big. The vision is big.
Yes, yes. I love it. I love it when we don't restrict ourselves to just what people think we should be doing or what people have come to know us as, when God has given us multidimensional gifts and talents. Um, and he allows us to tap into them all. So I think that's amazing. So I'm going to bring up your contact information. So I know your book is on Amazon. Can they also, I believe they can also get the book at your website that's on the screen, correct?
Yes, they can.
Okay. So for those of you watching and have heard about her book, Forgiving All Mine Enemies or Fame, that's a book that will help all of us walk through and get on the other side of forgiveness. You can visit her website, StephanieLashleyMinistries.com, to get the book. And if you are on social media, you can connect with her on Facebook. Her public page is her name, Stephanie Lashley. And then on IG, she's MRZ Steph Lash. So that is on the screen for you to connect with her on those platforms as well. So before I get you to share whatever your words of motivation or encouragement are, with the woman that is as busy as you are, what do you do for self-care or just to have time for Pastor Stephanie to refresh and replenish?
So the beach is my happy place. So when I need to get away, we live at the shore. So that's convenient. So when we need to get away, I just drive down to the beach. When I need a mental break, that's my mental break. But my husband and I have we asked God for a strategy, because it was getting so that we were not doing self-care. And so what we decided was, we are taking one weekend a month and just going away, whether it's away in New Jersey or whether it's away somewhere else. and we're going to take even maybe Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, or Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and we're just going to go away and tune out the world.
Yes.
So that
Yes.
we can just take time. And if it's nothing but to check into a hotel room and lay around and rest all day, that's fine. But we have
Yes.
made the decision and we are on track. We've started doing it and it's been so good for our soul. It's been good for our mental capacity, emotionally. You know, it's been good for us as a married couple to take that time, even though we work together, you know, we work together all day long. So, but it's different when you're working and when you don't have that stress of work.
Absolutely.
So that's our big thing, right? That's our biggest thing is we take that 1 weekend a month and we go away and we just say, that's it. Sorry, everybody's on your own. And it's been great. It's been amazing so far. So, you know, that's what we really do. And our other mini getaways are like just to the beach for an hour or whatever the case may be. You know, I love to work. I have a tremendous work ethic. I love to work and I'm happiest when I'm working. To be honest with you, I love to work.
Wow.
So, and it helps me tremendously. Meant to put my nose to the ground and really work. That's a mental relief for me.
Wow. Well, I would love to live an hour away from the beach, so I'm glad that you have that privilege. I like a nice beach getaway myself, so that is amazing that you have that as accessible to you as you do. So I always like to ask my guests, you know, what final words of inspiration, motivation, or encouragement that you may want to share, and it can be whatever's on your heart. So I'm going to allow you in this time to share whatever's on your heart that you would want to share with those listening or those that will be watching in the replay.
I think tonight I was kind of thinking about talking about struggle a little bit, but tonight what I want to really say is whatever it is that you have in you before you or that you believe that you're called to do, just trust God and do it. Listen, we have to trust that God can take us not just to someplace, but take us all the way through it and help us to get to the levels that He has promised us to get to. So sometimes we want to plan things out, but God has already planned them out for us. God already knows what we're going to be, what's going to happen in our lives, and what the outcome is going to be. So we have to trust that our plan for our lives, whatever it is, if it's entrepreneurship, if it's writing a book, if it's overcoming something, if it is going back to school, whatever it is for you, God has already seen it through. He's seen the whole process. He already knows that you're going to make it. He already knows that you're going to be successful. He already knows that He made you a promise even before you were formed in your mother's womb. Your whole life was planned out. All your blessings, all your promises were already planned out before you were even born. So know that God has got you completely in His hands and trust Him. Step out on Him because He will not fail you. We can only fail ourselves. He will never fail us. So take the step, jump, do whatever it is that has been on you to do. And I promise you, if you do it and it's in God's plan for your life and you've been created for this, it will come to full fruition. And God, no matter what the struggle is, and God will make sure that you reach the pinnacle that He has called you to reach.
Yes, yes. Thank you. Thank you so much for those encouraging words. That's enough to set all of us on fire for the rest of the year as we're getting ready to approach the last quarter of this year. So thank you for us to just trust God, take Him at His word and move forward with whatever it is that He has told us to do. So Pastor Stephanie, thank you so much for your transparency, for your willingness to come and just share from all aspects of your life. Continued strength to you, because for someone that is truly a serial entrepreneur and is oversighting several businesses with your husband. Just continued strength to you and your husband and your family, and continued success on your journey to continue to help heal women that have walked through the loss of their children. So I thank you for standing up in that space that is so very necessary, to help so many women that have been touched by that. So thank you guys for watching. Thank you guys for chiming in on the comments. We thank you for hanging out with us tonight. If you are jumping in late, catching the replay, you can still share the broadcast. You can still jump in the comments. I still go back and read them, even after the show. And I had a comment on a video tonight that I shared with a previous guest, because I'd always like to let them know the reach that they are making for those that are watching it. So I will not have a show next week. I'm actually going to be out of town. So we will be back in 2 weeks with another guest on the same night. So Thursday, September 30th, we'll be back at 8:30 p.m. So stay tuned. Keep in mind, and remember, you can go to simplytammy.com to join the mailing list so that you will get a heads up for when I will be coming back and who that guest will be. So Pastor Stephanie, I'm going to ask that you just hang out with me for a little bit as we get ready to conclude. And again, thank you so much for sharing with us on tonight. It's been indeed a pleasure to have you.
Thank you. It was my honor and pleasure.
Good night, everyone. Would you like to join us behind the scenes of Women Who Win? We're building a team of amazing thought leaders to grow with us. Please send an inquiry email to info@simplytammy.com for more information. If you enjoy the conversations on Women Who Win, let's connect beyond this space. Join us in the Our Common Thread community, where we are celebrating our stories and having deeper conversations. Visit simplytammy.com/connect to subscribe to the community.